In a world obsessed with appearances, the pursuit of thinness has shaped societies, driven industries, and transformed the lives of millions. But this journey to achieve the ideal body hasn't come cheap, financially, physically, or mentally. Welcome to the High Cost of Thin, a century of dieting trends and fads where we dive into the history of diet culture, the costs associated with it, and how the modern phenomena of the Ozempic epidemic fit into the century-long saga. From the snake oil salesmen of the 1920s to the billion-dollar pharmaceutical industries of today, the quest to be thin has left an indelible mark on our culture. But where did it all begin, and how did we get to where we are now? Let's start by taking a look at one of the most talked about trends in recent years, one that's making headlines for its rapid rise and controversial impact.
The power of 3. I lowered my A1C, CV risk, and lost some weight.
Ozempic, a medication initially developed for managing type 2 diabetes, has rapidly gained attention for a very different reason: its potential for weight loss. As social media platforms light up with stories of rapid transformations and influencers and celebrities alike rave about its so-called miracle effects, the drug has quickly become the latest obsession in the world of weight loss. The rise of Ozempic as a weight loss aid is nothing short of a phenomenon. Originally approved by the FDA to help manage blood sugar levels in diabetic patients, Ozempic's active ingredient, semaglutide, has shown significant weight loss effects as a secondary benefit. This discovery led to its off-label use for weight management, sparking a wave of interest that has seen demand far exceed supply. But this surge in popularity has come at a price. With the skyrocketing demands for Ozempic, pharmacies have struggled to keep it in stock, leading to widespread shortages. Diabetic patients who rely on Ozempic to manage their condition have found themselves unable to access the medication they need, raising serious ethical concerns about the off-label use of this drug for weight loss. Beyond the ethical issues, there are also significant health risks to consider. While Ozempic can be effective for weight loss, it's not without its side effects. Users have reported nausea, vomiting, and other gastrointestinal issues. Actually, I work at a medical aesthetics clinic and we prescribe Ozempic, and I was talking to a lady and she said she was like puking and nausea and on the toilet for like 2 months straight. And she said you basically can't eat anything. You have like 2 bites of food and just nothing seems appealing. And I was like, oh, so it's like having the stomach flu. She's like, yeah, nothing tastes good. I'm like, well, is it worth it? And then she was like, well, I've lost 15 pounds. Part of me is like, well, anyone can lose 15 pounds if they're puking all day, every day. Anyways, I don't know. I'm on the fence about it, to be honest, and I feel like there probably are a lot of other side effects, and the fact that it says it can cause thyroid cancer is just one of many other things. And so we don't really know about the long-term impacts of using this drug for weight loss or just having to use this drug regularly. Like I think if you go off it, you're gonna have problems, and so people are just using it as like a quick fix and they don't want to actually change their lifestyle. I mean, I understand if you're at a point where you're desperate and you need to lose a lot of weight and you're pre-diabetic or have diabetes, I do see why people would need to use it. When you get to that point, I do understand, but I think there's a lot of dietary stuff that can be changed as well. And Ozempic is not cheap without insurance. It can cost upwards of $1,000 a month, putting it out of reach for many. And this ties into the broader issue that persisted for decades, the commercialization of weight loss, where the promise of the perfect body is often accessible only to those who can afford it. And where did dieting begin? The desire to manage one's body weight is not a modern intention. It has roots that stretch back to antiquity. In ancient Greece and Rome, the concept of balance in diet was linked to overall health and the idea of the humors, bodily fluids that were believed to affect both physical and mental well-being. Physicians like Hippocrates emphasized moderation in eating and drinking, and even early versions of what we might now call diets were prescribed for health reasons. However, the idea of dieting as we understand it today, specifically for the purpose of weight loss, didn't emerge until much later. In the 17th and 18th 19th centuries, as Europe's middle and upper classes began to indulge in richer foods, concerns about corpulence and the health issues associated with obesity started to rise. But it was the 19th century that saw the formalization of dieting as a widespread practice. One of the earliest and most influential figures in the history of dieting was William Banting, an English undertaker who struggled with his weight. In 1863, he published Letter of Corpulence, a personal account of his struggles with obesity and his discovery of a diet that finally worked for him. Banting's diet, which recommended the avoidance of sugars and starches, was revolutionary at the time and laid the groundwork for what we now recognize as a low-carb diet. Banting's recommendations were straightforward: avoid sugar, bread, and potatoes, and focus on proteins and vegetables. The diet worked wonders for him, and his Letter of Corpulence became an instant hit, going through multiple editions and reaching a wide audience. The success of Banting's diet marked the beginning of a new era, one where weight management became a public and personal obsession. But Banting wasn't alone. Around the same time, other diet trends were emerging. The Romantic poet Lord Byron famously popularized the vinegar diet, a regime that involved drinking vinegar and eating dry biscuits to maintain a pale, thin appearance, an aesthetic that was in vogue during the Romantic era. Meanwhile, the 19th century also saw the rise of vegetarianism, driven by both health concerns and ethical considerations. These early diets were as much about societal and cultural ideals as they were about health. As the 19th century progressed, dieting began to shift from a personal practice to a public phenomenon. The Industrial Revolution brought about greater access to food, and with it a rise in obesity. In response, the burgeoning diet industry began to take shape. The market was soon flooded with weight loss tonics, slimming corsets, and miracle cures, setting the stage for the diet fads and trends that would dominate the 20th century. The obsession with weight loss was no longer just a matter of health. It became a marker of social status, discipline, and morality. This laid the foundation for the diet culture that would explode in the 20th century, influencing generations to come. 100 years of diet culture. The 20th century brought us an array of diets, each promising to be the ultimate solution to weight loss. Let's take a trip through the decades to see how dieting has evolved, and how each era's social and cultural context influence what we ate and why. The first ever modern diet book that became a bestseller was Diet and Health with a Key to the Calories, written by Dr. Lulu Hunt Peters in 1918. This book is often credited as the pioneering work in popularizing the concept of calorie counting as a method for weight loss, and it significantly shaped the diet culture in the 20th century. Dr. Lulu Hunt Peters was a physician who struggled with her weight, and her book reflected her personal experiences and professional insights. Diet and Health with a Key to the Calories was written in a controversial and accessible style, which contributed to its wide appeal. The book introduced the concept of calories to the general public, explaining how they could be used as a measure to control food intake and consequently body weight. The 1920s. The 1920s, known as the Jazz Age, was a decade of dramatic social change, especially for women. With the passing of the 19th Amendment, women gained the right to vote and began to assert their independence in new and bold ways.
Her unsuspecting countrymen have given her the vote, and what she votes for is a new set of manners and morals. Yes, sir, that's my baby now.
The flapper emerged as a symbol of the new era, a young woman who was confident, rebellious, and eager to break away from the restrictive norms of the past. But with this newfound freedom came an unexpected pressure: the need to be slim, stylish, and perpetually youthful. The ideal flapper body was a stark departure from the voluptuous hourglass figures of the previous decade. Instead, the 1920s celebrated a boyish, androgynous figure, flat-chested, narrow-hipped, and lean. The new beauty standard was heavily influenced by the rise of Hollywood and the silver screen, where actresses like Clara Bow and Louise Brooks captivated audiences with their slender physiques and carefree attitudes. To achieve this look, many women would turn to extreme measures. The market was flooded with new weight loss products ranging from diet pills and laxatives to bizarre contraptions like vibrating belts that promised to shake off the pounds. But one of the most infamous trends of the decade was the so-called cigarette diet. The cigarette diet wasn't just a fringe fad, it was actively promoted by tobacco companies as a legitimate way to control one's appetite and stay slim. Slogans like "reach for a lucky instead of a sweet" were plastered on billboards and magazine ads, suggesting that smoking could help women avoid weight gain. This was not just a marketing ploy, it was a reflection of the growing belief that being thin was essential to being attractive and successful. The marketing of cigarettes as a diet aid had a profound impact, contributing to the normalization of smoking among women. By the end of the decade, smoking had become a fashionable habit, closely associated with the modern, liberated woman. But the health costs of this trend were devastating, setting the stage for a public health crisis that would unfold in the decades to come. The 1930s. The 1930s was a decade defined by economic devastation. The Great Depression swept across the globe, leaving millions unemployed and struggling to make ends meet. For many, survival became the primary concern, and luxuries were in a distant memory. Yet, even in these hard times, the societal pressure to remain thin did not wane, it merely adapted.
Their conclusions were widely reported in the newspapers, and they shocked the public conscience. The scientists said that the health of the nation was being gravely affected by insufficient food and wrong feeding.
For women, the 1930s brought a new kind of challenge. While the era's beauty ideals still celebrated a slender figure, the approach to achieving this was no longer about luxury or excess. Instead, it was about frugality and resourcefulness. The notion of dieting shifted from one of aesthetic vanity to one of economic necessity. Being slim was seen not only as desirable, but also a sign of discipline and self-control, traits that were highly valued during times of scarcity. One of the most popular diets to emerge during this period was the grapefruit diet, commonly known as the Hollywood diet. The restricted eating plan promised rapid weight loss by consuming grapefruit with every meal, under the belief that the fruit contained a special enzyme that burned fat. The diet was simple, inexpensive, and fit perfectly with the era's emphasis on austerity. It quickly gained popularity, particularly in Hollywood, where actresses were under constant pressure to maintain their figures for the screen. Despite the widespread economic hardship, the diet industry continued to thrive. Magazines and diet manuals of the time were filled with tips on how to lose weight on a budget, reflecting the belief that thinness was still attainable, even when food and resources were scarce. This period also saw the beginnings of a more scientific approach to dieting, with nutritional science gaining ground in public discourse. The idea that one could control their weight through careful management of food intake became clearly ingrained in the public consciousness. The 1940s were dominated by the global upheaval of World War II, a conflict that reshaped every aspect of life, including how people ate and thought about their bodies.
Americans not in the armed forces will get less of the common foods to which they are accustomed. But by rationing, by sharing what we have, and by using our food supply wisely, our nation at war can still support a healthy, active people.
As the war effort intensified, governments around the world imposed strict rationing to ensure that resources were directed to soldiers and essential workers. Sugar, butter, meat, and other staples were in short supply, forcing people to make do with less. This scarcity naturally led to a reduction in consumption, but it also brought a new focus on the importance of nutrition and managing one's health. With rationing in full effect, the emphasis shifted from beauty to dieting for strength and vitality. The ideal woman of the 1940s was not just slim, she was strong, capable, and ready to contribute to the war effort. As women stepped into the roles traditionally held by men working in factories, driving ambulances, and even joining the military, their physical fitness became a symbol for their patriotic duty. The slender, active figure of the 1940s was as much about practicality as it was about appearance. Government propaganda played a significant role in shaping body image during the war. Posters and pamphlets encouraged women to do your part by staying healthy and fit, emphasizing that their strength was vital to the war effort. Exercise routines were promoted not just for weight control, but for building the stamina needed to handle the physical demands of wartime work. This focus on fitness over fashion represented a shift in priorities, where the body was valued for its functionality rather than just its aesthetics. Rationing also led to a kind of enforced dieting, as the scarcity of food meant that indulgence was no longer an option. Women became experts in making the most of what they had, developing recipes that were nutritious yet economical. Victory gardens sprung up in backyards, and home canning became a widespread practice, as families sought to supplement their rations with homegrown produce. These practices reinforced the idea that a healthy body was a productive body, essential to both the war effort and the well-being of the nation. As the war drew to a close and rationing began to ease, the focus on maintaining a healthy, fit body persisted. However, the return of abundance brought with it a renewed interest in slimming down. As people were once again faced with a surplus of food, the post-war era would soon see the resurgence of targeted weight loss efforts, as the luxuries that had been denied during the war became readily available once more. The 1950s. The 1950s was a decade of unparalleled prosperity. The end of World War II ushered in an era of abundance and optimism, where the American dream seemed within reach for many. With this newfound wealth came a focus on home, family, and self-improvement.
Mrs. Chubby was a good cook and fed him well, perhaps too well. Chubby started growing again, this time sideways. And the same thing happened to slim, attractive Mrs. Chubby. And the more they ate, the bigger they got. And the bigger they got, the more they ate.
For women particularly, this meant embracing the role of the perfect housewife, a role that included not only keeping a pristine home, but also maintaining an ideal figure. The beauty standards of the 1950s were heavily influenced by Hollywood, where actresses like Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell, and Elizabeth Taylor epitomized the ideal woman. The preferred body type was slim but curvaceous, an hourglass figure with a tiny waist and full hips and bust. This look was both feminine and glamorous, reflecting the era's celebration of domesticity and traditional gender roles. To achieve this ideal, women turned to a variety of dieting methods and products that helped promise to make them maintain their slim figures. The market was flooded with new and often bizarre weight loss solutions. Slimming soaps claimed to wash away fat, vibrating belts promised to shake off the pounds without any effort, and home exercise equipment became a staple in many households. These products were marketed as convenient ways for busy housewives to stay in shape while managing their homes. One of the most significant developments in 1950s dieting was the rise of diet pills, particularly amphetamines. Marketed under various brand names, these miracle pills promise rapid weight loss with minimal effort. They are often prescribed by doctors and promoted as safe and effective, leading to widespread use among women eager to achieve the ideal figure. However, these pills came with a high cost, both financially and physically. Amphetamines work by suppressing appetite and increasing energy levels, which made them incredibly popular. But what many women didn't realize was the dark side of these drugs. Long-term use led to addiction, severe mood swings, anxiety, and even heart problems. The promise of easy weight loss quickly turned into a nightmare for many, as the risks far outweighed the benefits. Yet despite these dangers, the demand for diet pills continued to grow, laying the groundwork for the pharmaceutical approach to weight loss that would dominate the following decades. The 1950s also saw the beginning of a cultural shift, where dieting became more than just a personal endeavor, it became a social activity. Women joined slimming clubs, read diet books, and followed the latest weight loss trends with a sense of shared purpose. The pressure to conform to beauty standards was pervasive, and being slim was increasingly seen as a reflection of a woman's self-discipline, morality, and social status. The 1960s. The 1960s was a decade of profound cultural and social upheaval. As the counterculture movement swept across the Western world, it brought with it a rejection of the established norms, including those related to diet and body image. This era of rebellion extended beyond politics and into personal choices, including what people ate and how they viewed their bodies.
Metrocal helps you restrict calories while providing sound nutrition and appetite satisfaction. As your physician, your best source of counsel will tell you, overweight not only detracts from your appearance, but impairs health and shortens life.
The counterculture movement championed natural living, turning away from processed and artificial foods that had become staples in the post-war era. As people sought alternatives to the mainstream, the 1960s saw a surge in the popularity of natural foods, vegetarianism, and organic farming. Health food stores began to pop up in cities offering products that were free from artificial additives, preservatives, and pesticides. The macrobiotic diet, which emphasized whole grains, vegetables, and legumes, gained a devoted following, particularly among those in the counterculture. This was more than just a dietary choice, it was a statement against the consumerism and conformity of the previous decade. But while the counterculture movement promoted a back-to-nature approach to food, the mainstream diet culture of the 1960s was still very much obsessed with quick fixes. Fad diets like the cabbage soup diet became popular, offering extreme weight loss solutions that promised results in just days. These diets often involved consuming a single food or a severely restricted diet, reflecting the decade's fascination with extremes and the desire for instant gratification. The 1960s also brought about a radical shift in beauty standards, particularly with the rise of Twiggy, the teenage model whose waifish figure and androgynous look came to define the decade. In stark contrast to the voluptuous curves celebrated in the 50s, Twiggy's super slim, almost boyish physique became the new ideal. Her image was splashed across magazine covers, and young women around the world aspired to achieve her slender frame. Twiggy's influence was profound. Her look was a symbol of the times, youthful, rebellious, and decidedly different from the polished glamour image of the 50s. Women began to diet and exercise not just to lose weight, but to achieve this new angular silhouette. The emphasis was on being thin, sometimes to the point of appearing fragile, reflecting the decade's broader themes of breaking boundaries and challenging the status quo. But the obsession with thinness had darker consequences. The pressure to conform to Twiggy's idealized image contributed to the rise of eating disorders, and young women struggled to achieve and maintain an unnaturally slim figure. The 1960s marked the beginning of more intense and often unhealthy focus on dieting and body image, a trend that would continue to escalate into the decades to come. In the 1960s, dieting became a significant part of popular culture, and several products emerged that would shape the way people approached weight loss. One of the most influential products of the decade was Metricol, a powdered meal replacement shake, a low-calorie, nutritionally balanced alternative to traditional meals. Introduced in 1959, Metricol quickly gained popularity in the 60s as a convenient way to lose weight, appealing to those who wanted a simple solution to control their calorie intake. Its success spawned a wave of similar products, including canned versions and different flavors, making meal replacement diets a common practice during this decade. Another popular product was Aid's appetite suppressant candy, a small, chewable candy that claimed to reduce hunger. Aids came in various flavors like chocolate and butterscotch and contained benzocaine, which was believed to numb the taste buds slightly, curbing the desire to eat. The product was heavily marketed and became a go-to option for those seeking to manage their weight without drastically changing their eating habits. That sounds weird. I can't imagine having numb taste buds. In addition to these, amphetamines like dexedrine became widespread. Though controversial, it was a tool for weight loss. Prescribed by doctors as appetite suppressants, these diet pills promise rapid weight loss by reducing hunger and increasing energy levels. However, they also came with significant risks, including addiction and severe side effects, leading to a growing concern and criticism over their use. The 1970s. The 1970s, often referred to as the Me decade, was a time of contrast marked by the glittering excess of disco culture on one hand and a growing obsession with health and fitness on the other. As the decade progressed, the focus on physical appearance became more pronounced, driven by the desire not just to be thin, but to be fit, toned, and ready to hit the dance floor.
A low diagonal. Right. Now heel. 1, 2.
This era saw the birth of modern fitness culture, where looking good became synonymous with feeling good. Jogging became a nationwide craze, fueled by the belief that cardiovascular exercise was a key to health and longevity. Aerobics classes, which combined dance and high-energy workouts, took the country by storm, thanks in part to charismatic personalities of fitness gurus like Richard Simmons and the rise of workout videos pioneered by Jane Fonda. These trends reflected the broader cultural shift towards self-improvement and the idea of maintaining a fit body, which was an essential part of self-care. But fitness wasn't the only focus. Dieting also became more structured and social during the 70s. One of the most significant developments in the diet industry was the rise of Weight Watchers, which had been founded in the early 60s but gained widespread popularity in the 70s. Weight Watchers revolutionized diet by offering a communal approach where members attended regular meetings to share their struggles, successes, and tips for staying on track. This group dynamic helped many dieters stay motivated, turning weight loss into a social activity that provided both accountability and support. Weight Watchers also introduced a structured point system, which allowed members to track their food intake without having to count calories obsessively. This approach emphasized balance and moderation, teaching members to make healthier choices without completely depriving themselves of the foods they loved. The program's success demonstrated that dieting could be both effective and sustainable, laying the foundation for many of the diet programs that followed. And I've used Weight Watchers before. I always just got sick of counting my points, to be honest. And the 1970s also saw the explosion of diet foods as manufacturers began to capitalize on the growing demand for low-calorie and low-fat products. Diet sodas became a staple in many households, offering a guilt-free way to enjoy a sweet beverage. Sugar substitutes like Sweet and Low were marketed as essential tools for those looking to reduce their sugar intake, while fat-free snacks promised all the flavor without the calories. These products were often heavily processed, but they tapped into the desire for weight loss without sacrifice, a trend that would continue to shape the diet industry for decades. While the 1970s brought new opportunities for people to take control of their health and appearance, it also intensified the societal pressures to conform to an idealized body image. The 1980s. The 1980s was a decade defined by its obsession with fitness as the aerobics craze swept across the globe. Speared by popularity of Jane Fonda's workout tapes, which became a cultural phenomenon, millions of people embraced aerobics as a fun and social way to stay fit.
First part, the aerobics class, is a low-impact workout and a bench workout all in one.
Plus a fitness bonus, the optional use of the aerobics step.
Now, if you're on the bench, step up. Step.
The emphasis was on a lean toned body, a reflection of the decade's broader cultural focus on self-discipline, control, and physical perfection. Fitness was not just a hobby, it became a lifestyle, symbolizing health, wealth, and even more superiority. And Jane Fonda's workout tapes, which were also popular in the 70s, were more than just exercise videos. I mean, a lot of other movie stars had workout tapes too in the 80s and in the 90s. They were cultural touchstones that inspired a generation to get up and move. Fonda's influence was so profound that her name became synonymous with the aerobics boom, and her tapes sold millions of copies worldwide. The message was clear. To be fit was to be fashionable, and to be fashionable was to be admired. But the 1980s wasn't just about fitness, it was also a decade of dieting innovation. The diet industry exploded, offering an array of products designed to help people shed pounds quickly and conveniently. Slim Fast shakes became a household name, promising a simple solution for weight loss, a shake for breakfast, a shake for lunch, and a sensible dinner. And this also saw the introduction for an array of fat-free and low-calorie products which lined the supermarket shelves, all marketed with the promise that you could enjoy your favorite foods without the guilt. Artificial sweeteners, particularly aspartame, were introduced during this time as a way to satisfy sweet cravings without the calories. Products like Diet Coke and sugar-free desserts became staples for those looking to maintain their slim figures while still indulging in sweetness. The marketing of these products played into the idea that you could have your cake and eat it too, as long as it's sugar-free. However, the widespread adoption of artificial sweeteners also sparked debates over their safety and controversy that would continue for decades. And also, I have a video on my Dark History channel, Dahlia's in the Attic, I'll link it below, where I talk all about the controversy behind aspartame and Diet Coke. The ideal body of the 80s was lean, toned, and athletic. Fitness magazines and infomercials sold the idea that anyone could achieve this this look with the right combination of diet and exercise. The pressure to conform to this ideal was immense, particularly for women who were bombarded with images of impossibly slender models and fitness icons. And the decade was a huge focus on health and fitness and being toned. And it was also the normalization of extreme dieting behaviors where people were encouraged to push their bodies to the limit. And there was the era's mantra, no pain, no gain, which encapsulated the belief that achieving the perfect body required intense effort and sacrifice. The 1990s. The 1990s marked a stark departure from the vibrant, fitness-obsessed culture of the 1980s. In its place emerged the heroin chic aesthetic, characterized by ultra-thin models with pale skin, dark circles under their eyes, and an overall look that was more grunge than glam. Supermodels like Kate Moss became the faces of the new ideal, which celebrated a fragile, almost unhealthy appearance. Moss's famous declaration that nothing tastes as good as skinny feels encapsulated the decade's obsession with extreme thinness, a standard that was unattainable for most and dangerously unhealthy for some. The fashion industry played a pivotal role in promoting this look. Runway shows and fashion magazines were dominated by images of gaunt, androgynous models whose bodies seemed to defy nature. The heroin chic trend was not just about fashion, it was a reflection of the decade's broader cultural themes of rebellion, disillusionment, and rejection of the excess of the previous era. However, the glorification of such extreme thinness had serious consequences, contributing to the rise in eating disorders and body dysmorphia among young women and men who felt pressure to conform to this dangerous ideal. At the same time, the 1990s saw a shift towards convenience in dieting. As the pace of life quickened, more women entered the workforce. The diet industry responded with products designed to fit into a busy lifestyle. Meal replacement bars, low-carb snacks, and fat-free treats like Snackwells, I remember those cookies for sure, became staples in those looking to manage their weight. And then Slim Fast again was still popular, and was popular even in the 80s and continued to dominate the market. And these convenient diet products were often marketed as healthy alternatives, but their low-fat, low-calorie formulations were heavily processed and often loaded with sugars and artificial ingredients. And the 1990s were marked by the rise of the low-fat diet craze, where all fat was demonized at the root of all weight problems. But the thing is, a lot of these products that were low-fat still were high sugar, and this led to a proliferation of fat-free foods that promised guilt-free indulgence, but often at the expense of nutritional value. And I definitely remember everything always labeled as fat-free. And while these products were popular, they did little to address the underlying issues of poor diet and the sedentary lifestyles. And their long-term effectiveness was questionable. And the relentless pursuit of thinness in the 90s came at a significant cost. There was always this pressure for that heroin chic look, and these grab-and-go products led to a lot of eating disorders. And the decade's obsession with thinness perpetuated the harmful belief that success and beauty were linked to a person's weight. Entering 2000s, as we entered the new millennium, diet culture continued to evolve. The early 2000s saw the resurgence of low-carb diets like Atkins and the South Beach diet, which promised rapid weight loss by cutting out carbohydrates. Meanwhile, the rise of social media platforms like Instagram fueled a new kind of diet culture, one where influencers and celebrities shared their weight loss journeys and promoted various products to millions of followers. The era saw the rise of detox teas, juice cleanses, and other products marketed as quick fixes for weight loss. Celebrities and influencers played a significant role in popularizing these trends, often without disclosing the potential health risks. The pursuit of the perfect body became more intense than ever, as people were constantly bombarded with images of idealized physiques on social media. And the rise of social media also came with backlash. Movements like body positivity and health at every size began to challenge the traditional notions of beauty and thinness, also advocating self-acceptance and the rejection of diet culture. Besides this, the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar business. In recent years, new diet trends like fasting, the keto diet have gained popularity, and I actually really like fasting, where I won't eat breakfast and I'll fast till like noon or even 1. And now also the drug drugs like Ozempic are entering the conversation where a lot of people are just resorting to that. But I think it's important to just eat healthy first. Obviously it's hard. It's hard to eat healthy. It's hard to make food when you're working, you have kids. I get it. Like, people are busy, a lot busier than they used to be in many ways, because usually both parents work now, so it's just a different world that we live in. And over the past 100 years, the pursuit of thinness has driven countless diet trends, fueled industries, and shaped cultural norms. But as we've seen, the quest to be skinny isn't just about aesthetics, it's deeply intertwined in the societal pressures, economic factors, and evolving ideals of beauty. From the dangerous diet pills of the 50s to the social media fueled detox teas of the 2010s. The cost of dieting has been far greater than just dollars and cents. So thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think of all the different dieting trends and body trends from every decade. And don't forget to check out some of my other vintage videos.